United Nations slams Israel's blocking of Gaza tent deliveries. And also Trump signals air support for Ukraine's security. Good afternoon and salam Malaysia Madani. I'm Brendan Lepong. The United Nations took aim at Israel's months-long block on bringing tents into the Gaza Strip despite continual displacement orders being issued to civilians in the devastated territory. The UN humanitarian agency OCHA said shelter items had been banned from entering Gaza for about 5 months, a period in which more than 700,000 people had been displaced or re-displaced. It said the residents may have been provided with a tent, and then they are displaced again with no possibility of taking the tent with them. It added Israeli forces had classified tents as dual use because they considered tent poles could potentially be used for a military purpose. The agency decried layers of bureaucracy, which seemed designed not to facilitate fast entry of anything, but rather the opposite. Israel announced earlier this month that it intended to take over Gaza City and issued another displacement order to residents last Saturday. The UN Human Rights Office said the takeover plans bore huge risks for civilians. Spokesman Tamin Al-Khitan said there are risks of mass displacement and more killings and misery. He accused Israel of displacing Palestinians to areas where strikes are continuing. Khitan said hundreds of thousands were being told to go south to Al-Mawasi, which he said is still under bombardment. Deliberate strikes on hospitals, schools and aid hubs are shattering every tenet of humanitarian law, while the coffers of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, are running dry, leaving 11.5 million refugees and displaced people around the world facing a future without food, shelter or medical care. Assistant High Commissioner for Protection at UNHCR, Ruvendrini Medikdiwela, expressed concern over the worsening humanitarian situation in many parts of the world. She noted that the biggest challenge right now is the complete violation of all principles of international humanitarian law, international human rights law, and international refugee law.
We are seeing this with the complete disregard for human life. You're seeing the way that civilian structures are no longer just collateral damage in conflicts. They are the deliberate targets. So whether we're talking about hospitals, schools, food distribution centers, displacement sites, these are all being deliberately targeted in conflicts to create as much casualties and as much damage as possible. And this is absolutely, absolutely intolerable and untenable.
She also said inadequate funding is limiting UNHCR's capabilities in reaching out to the refugees. Syria's foreign minister met with an Israeli diplomatic delegation in Paris to discuss de-escalation and non-interference in Syria's internal affairs. State news agency SANA said the latest in a series of U.S. mediated talks resulted in understandings that support stability in the region. The meeting in Paris follows one between Syrian Foreign Minister Assad al-Shaibani and Israeli Minister of Strategic Affairs Ron Dermer in Baku in late July, and another meeting in Paris before that. Israel and Syria have technically been at war since 1948, and the talks also discussed reviving a disengagement accord from 1974 that created a buffer zone between the two countries. The news agency said these talks were taking place under U.S. mediation as part of a diplomatic efforts aimed at enhancing security and stability in Syria and preserving the unity and integrity of its territory. The recent meetings between the two countries come after deadly sectarian clashes in July in southern Syria's Druze majority Sweda province, which left over 1,400 people dead. U.S. President Donald Trump has ruled out putting U.S. troops on the ground in Ukraine, but said the U.S. might provide air support as part of a deal to end Russia's war in the country. A day after Trump pledged security guarantees to help end the war at a White House summit, the path to peace remained uncertain as the US and allies prepared to sort out the details of military support for Ukraine. The nature of US military aid for Ukraine under a peace deal was unclear. Air support could take many forms such as missile defense systems or fighter jets enforcing a no-fly zone. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt confirmed that US air support was an option and a possibility, but, like Trump, did not provide any details. While Trump had said Russian President Vladimir Putin had agreed to meet Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and accept some Western security guarantees for Ukraine, these promises have been met with extreme caution by Kyiv and Western capitals, and many details remain vague. A White House official said Trump discussed Budapest as a venue for a summit involving Zelensky and Putin with Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Istanbul, where delegations for the two countries had met previously, has also been mentioned. Putin proposed holding the summit with Zelensky in Moscow, but one source said Zelensky immediately said no to the suggestion. Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro said he will deploy 4.5 million militia members in response to U.S. threats after Washington raised the bounty for his arrest and launched anti-drug operations in the Caribbean. According to official figures, the Venezuelan militia, founded by Maduro's predecessor, Hugo Chavez, contains about 5 million people, though the actual number is believed to be smaller. Maduro called on his government's political base to move forward with the formation of peasant and worker militias in all industries.
Esta semana voy a activar un plan especial para garantizar la cobertura con más de 4.500.000 milicianos ameliados de todo el territorio nacional. Milicias preparadas, activadas y armadas.
The administration of U.S. President Donald Trump earlier this month doubled its bounty to $50 million for the arrest of Maduro, who faces drug trafficking charges. Washington, which does not recognize Maduro's past two election victories, accuses the Venezuelan of leading a cocaine trafficking gang called Cartel de los Soles. The Trump administration announced sanctions against the group and Maduro's administration last month. The U.S. military has also reportedly deployed several vessels to the southern Caribbean as part of Trump's crackdown on Latin American drug cartels. In other news, Canada's unionized flight attendants have reached an agreement with the country's largest carrier, ending the first strike by its cabin crew in 40 years that had upended travel plans for hundreds of thousands of passengers. The carrier said it would gradually resume operations and a full restoration may require a week or more. The union said it has completed mediation with the airline and its low-cost affiliate Air Canada Rouge. Air Canada said some flights will be cancelled over the next 7 to 10 days until the schedule is stabilized, and customers with cancelled flights can choose between a refund, travel credit, or rebooking on another airline. Long lines were seen at Toronto's airport as passengers tried to get flights to their respective destinations. Some foreigners were in the process of migrating to Canada as the strike began. They managed to arrive in Canada but found themselves waiting for the strike to end before reaching their final destination in Calgary. The flight attendants walked off the job last Saturday after contract talks with the carrier failed. They had also sought pay for tasks, such as boarding passengers. Off for a quick break, but still ahead, India and China agree to boost business links. Stay with us. And welcome back. India and China have agreed to resume direct flights and step up trade and investment flows as the neighbours rebuild ties damaged by a 2020 border clash. The Asian giants are cautiously strengthening ties against the backdrop of US President Donald Trump's unpredictable foreign policy, staging a series of high-level bilateral visits. The Indian Foreign Ministry said the two countries would resume direct flights and boost trade and investments, including reopening border trade at 3 designated points and facilitate in visas. The latest statement came at the end of Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi's 2-day visit to New Delhi for the 24th round of talks with Indian National Security Advisor Ajit Doval to resolve their decades-old border dispute. The border talks covered issues related to pulling back troops both countries have amassed on their Himalayan border, delimitation of borders and boundary affairs. The Chinese Foreign Ministry said both countries have agreed to set up a working group to consult and coordinate on border affairs to advance demarcation negotiations. It said the mechanism will extend talks to cover the eastern and middle sections of the border. The U.S. has broadened the reach of its steel and aluminium tariffs, impacting hundreds more products that contain both metals, such as child seats, tableware, and heavy equipment. The Bureau of Industry and Security said in a recent notice that it was adding 407 product types to a list of items considered steel and aluminium derivative products. This means a 50% tariff on both metals imposed by President Donald Trump earlier this year will apply to their steel and aluminium content. The widened scope took effect on Monday, and the notice detailing the changes was published in the Federal Register yesterday. The Commerce Department said the action covers wind turbines and their parts and components, mobile cranes, bulldozers and other heavy equipment, rail cars, furniture, compressors and pumps, and hundreds of other products. Under Secretary of Commerce for Industry and Security, Jeffrey Kessler said, the move shuts down avenues for circumvention, reiterating the aim of boosting U.S. steel and aluminium industries. Trump initially unveiled a 25% tariff on imports of both metals before doubling the rate to 50% in June. On another note, the White House has launched a TikTok account as President Donald Trump continues to permit the Chinese-owned platform to operate in the U.S. despite a law requiring its sale. The account had about 4,500 followers an hour after posting its first video. Trump's personnel account on TikTok, meanwhile, has 110.1 million followers, though his last post was on 5th November last year, which was the election day. TikTok is owned by China-based internet company ByteDance. A federal law requiring TikTok's sale or ban on national security grounds was due to effect the day before Trump's inauguration on 20th January. But the Republican whose 2024 election campaign relied heavily on social media and said he is fond of TikTok put the ban on pause. In mid-June, Trump extended the deadline for the popular video-sharing app by another 90 days to find a non-Chinese buyer or be banned in the U.S. That extension is due to expire in mid-September. While Trump had long supported a ban or divestment, he reversed his position and vowed to defend the platform, which boasts almost 2 billion global users, after coming to believe it helped him win young voters' support in the November election. Meanwhile, the U.S. Transportation Department said it may uphold or withhold up to 25% of federal transit funding for New York State's Metropolitan Transportation Authority, MTA, if the agency does not improve safety for subway track maintenance workers. The Federal Transit Administration, FTA, issued a directive in August last year to the MTA's New York City Transit, which oversees the city's subway and bus system, after the agency did not improve safety measures between the November 2023 death of a track maintenance employee and a serious injury to a worker in June 2024. The Transportation Department said the MTA must now submit a new comprehensive risk assessment of its rail transit roadway worker protection within 30 days. The Transport Workers Union, which represents New York transit workers, praised the FTA action, saying the federal agency last year had found that the MTA's first safety assessment was inadequate. An FTA audit last year identified significant safety deficiencies and directed the agency to perform additional oversight activities to address an escalating pattern of safety incidents and concerns affecting New York City transit workers. Hurricane Erin has weakened to Category 2 but continues to threaten part of the U.S. East Coast with life-threatening flooding. The storm, which underwent historically rapid intensification and briefly peaked at Category 5 on the Saffir-Simpson scale, swamped homes and roads in the U.S. island territory of Puerto Rico. Although its core is projected to remain far offshore, meteorologists remain concerned by Erin's large size, with tropical storm force winds extending hundreds of miles from its core. The U.S. National Hurricane Center said tropical storm warnings are no longer in place for the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos Islands, but remain in place for parts of North Carolina. It added there is potential for destructive wave action on top of the storm surge that could result in severe beach and coastal damage, making coastal roads impassable. A broader swath of coastline from North Carolina to southern Virginia is under a low-grade tropical storm watch. U.S. media reported that dozens of people had to be rescued from dangerous rip currents, surges of water that run against the tide. The agency is tracking 2 more disturbances tailing Erin, the first with a 60% chance of forming into a cyclone over the next week, and a second with a 30% chance. Around 782 passengers were evacuated after 2 overcrowded monorail trains stalled on elevated tracks amid torrential rain in Mumbai. The rescue operation lasted nearly 5 hours, leading to panic. Around 582 passengers were rescued from the monorail train stuck between Mysore Colony and Bhakti Park by deploying snorkel ladders as the train could not be towed back. Whereas 200 passengers were evacuated from another monorail train which was successfully towed back to the nearby Wadala station. Officials said the trains were over capacity after suburban rail services were suspended due to the downpour, adding that power supply failure and overcrowding led to the disruptions. 15 passengers complained of suffocation as electricity and AC systems shut down. 14 of them were discharged after treatment on the spot, while a girl was admitted to hospital and her condition was stable. Torrential rains across the state of Maharashtra in western India caused widespread damage and triggered waterlogging and floods, leaving at least 4 people dead. Mumbai, the country's financial capital, saw severe waterlogging while the swollen Godavari River unleashed a deluge in Nanded district, destroying homes and forcing residents onto the streets. The monsoon, which delivers about 75% of India's annual rainfall, is vital, as nearly half of the country's farmland lacks irrigation. However, excessive rain often leads to flooding and waterlogging, exacerbated by inadequate drainage systems. Rescue teams in northwest Pakistan scrambled to find survivors after a devastating cloudburst triggered a flash flood that swept through a remote mountain village, killing at least 20 people. The toll contributed to a total of 358 deaths in the floods in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province since Friday, more than 200 of them in the worst-hit district of Buna. The National Disaster Management Authority and provincial authorities have dispatched medical teams and relief supplies to the area as flash flood obliterated homes and infrastructure, leaving survivors with nothing. Pakistan is increasingly vulnerable to such climate-related disasters, with recent monsoon rains and glacial melts causing significant damage across the country. The torrential rains and flooding this monsoon season have killed at least 695 people across Pakistan since late June. Next up in sports, Mo Salah voted PFA Player of the Year. Liverpool forward Mohamed Salah was named the Professional Footballers Association (PFA) Player of the Year, with the Egyptian becoming the first player to win the award 3 times. Salah, who joined Liverpool in 2017, was the Premier League's top scorer last season, with his 29 goals along with 18 assists, playing a key role in the club winning the league title, finishing 10 points ahead of runners-up Arsenal. The 33-year-old had already clinched the Premier League Player of the Season award, the Golden Boot for most goals scored, and the Playmaker award for most assists, making him the first player to win all 3 awards in the same season. Salah first won the PFA award in 2018 after his first season at Liverpool, and again in 2022, and this year came out on top of a 6-man shortlist voted by PFA members from the 92 Premier League and Football League teams. Arsenal midfielder Mariona Caldente was named Women's Player of the Year. The Spaniard scored 9 league goals in her first season with the club, along with 8 goals in the Champions League, where Arsenal beat her former club Barcelona to win the trophy. Sadio Mane became the 3rd Al Nassr player in as many Saudi Super Cup editions to be sent off. But his early goal and a second-half strike from new signing Joao Felix secured a 2-1 win over Al Ittihad in a tense semi-final. Mane opened the scoring in the 10th minute at the Hong Kong Stadium with a powerful volley after a low cross from Croatian midfielder Marcelo Brozovic. However, the Senegalese forward was shown a straight red card in the 25th minute for a reckless challenge on Al Ittihad goalkeeper Hamed Al Shankiti, confirmed after a VAR review. The dismissal continued a troubling trend for Al Nassr in the competition, following red cards for Cristiano Ronaldo in 2023 and Brozovic last year. Dutch winger Steven Bergwijn equalised for Al Ittihad in the 16th minute, finishing off a swift counter-attack with a low shot from the edge of the box. Despite being reduced to 10 men, Al Nassr regained the lead in the 61st minute when Felix, who joined the club this summer, latched onto a through ball from Ronaldo and slotted past the keeper. Moments later, Felix thought he had grabbed a second, but his drilled shot was ruled out by VAR for a Ronaldo foul on Fabinho in the build-up. Al Nassr advanced to the final, where they will face the winner of the second semi-final between Al Qadsiya and Al Ahly. Marseille manager Roberto De Zerbi has told Adrien Rabiot and Jonathan Rowe they will never play for the club again after the pair were involved in a physical altercation following the club's loss to Rennes on the opening weekend of the French League season. Marseille confirmed that both players have been put on the transfer list and have until the 1st of September to find a new club. Rabiot, who has 1 year left in his contract, has attracted interest from former club Juventus and Inter Milan, while Premier League sides are also monitoring the situation. Rowe, who left Norwich for the south of France a year ago, also has options in England, with Sunderland and Leeds United. France international midfielder Rabiot and England under-21 international winger Rowe were expelled from the first-team squad after fighting with each other following Marseille's defeat away at Rennes. Tempest boils over in the dressing room after the loss in a game where Marseille played with 11 men against 10 for an hour. Rabiot accused Rowe of a lack of commitment, and they insulted each other in front of the whole squad before getting physical with each other. De Zerbi was also frustrated with Rabiot's behavior in pre-season, believing he was not invested enough, despite being Marseille's best player last season and the squad's highest earner. Meanwhile, Alexander Isak accused Newcastle United of breaking promises and misleading supporters in a social media statement that confirmed he wanted to leave the Premier League club. The 25-year-old forward said he informed Newcastle of his desire to leave a long time ago. Newcastle responded with a statement late Tuesday saying that while they were saddened by Isak's comments, they could yet welcome the 25-year-old back into the squad. The Sweden international, who was the subject of a £110 million bid from Liverpool earlier this month, according to media reports, was named in the PFA Premier League team of the 2024-25 season. However, he chose not to attend the ceremony due to ongoing issues surrounding his future. Isak missed Newcastle's goalless draw with Aston Villa last Saturday, and Eddie Howe side are set to play defending champions Liverpool next Tuesday. Isak has scored 62 goals in 109 appearances since joining from Real Sociedad in 2022, including the winner against Liverpool in the League Cup final earlier this year that ended Newcastle's 70-year wait to win a domestic trophy. Moving on to tennis, veteran doubles experience overcame singles stardom as defending champions Andrea Vavasori and Sara Errani reached the semi-finals at the US Open's Reimagine mixed doubles. Vavasori and Errani down 2022 Wimbledon singles winner Elena Rybakina and 2024 US Open singles finalist Taylor Fritz 4-2, 4-2. Before outlasting Karolina Muchova and Andrei Rublev 4-1, 5-4 in the quarterfinals. The pair had added motivation to retain their crown as the year's final major took a new approach to the event, beloved by fans but often lost in a shuttle that is dominated by singles action, moving the competition to 5 days before the main draw. The 2022 singles champion Iga Swiatek showed little sign of fatigue a day after clinching the title in Cincinnati as she and teammate Casper Ruud downed American duo Madison Keys and Frances Tiafoe 4-1, 4-2 in their opener. They made easy work of Grand Slam doubles finalist Caty McNally and partner Lorenzo Musetti 4-1, 4-2 later in the day to claim another of the semi-final spots. Carlos Alcaraz and Novak Djokovic, meanwhile, were both dumped out the opening round. Alcaraz, teaming with former women's singles champion Emma Raducanu, suffered an opening round 4-2, 4-2 loss to top seeds Jack Draper and Jessica Pegula, who themselves advanced to the semis after dispatching Russians Daniil Medvedev and Mira Andreeva 4-1, 4-1. Medvedev and Andreeva had begun their campaign by knocking out the Serbian duo of Djokovic and Olga Danilovic 4-2, 5-3. New Zealand's rugby union team, the All Blacks, have arrived in Buenos Aires for the second match against Argentina in the Rugby Championship. The All Blacks took part in a rain-soaked training session at the San Isidro Club, having handed Los Pumas a 41-24 battering in their opening clash of the Southern Hemisphere Championship in Cordoba last week. That win has pushed the All Blacks back to the #1 spot in the world rankings ahead of Saturday's game, which will be played at Estadio Jose Amalfitani in the capital.
Yeah, there's things that we can improve there, but you can't expect to win every moment in a test match. That's why it's a test match, and there's going to be moments in the game we lose. It's just how we can adapt quickly and get back on top and control the momentum and get them back, get the momentum back on our side. So. We've talked about how we can do that, and now it's time to try and action it.
And that wraps up World Today. In our top story, United Nations slams Israel blocking of Gaza tent deliveries. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight, coming up 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and Saluran Berita RTM. Till then, I'm Brendan Lepol, Malaysia Madani, Rakyat di Santuni. Thank you for watching and take care.